LA's turned into a hole. Everyone's moving away. The taxes are high. The homeless are under every overpass. The government sucks. How are you going to fix it?
All right, $1 million question. I mean, the answer is...
Hey, what's up, my friends? It's Danny. I am so excited for today's video because I'm going to talk about how we're going to save Los Angeles. That's right, you guys. It is not past the point of no return. We can still save this city and maybe even save California. Now, if you've been paying attention and you've been watching my channel, you know that I have done a lot of videos about the problems here in California. In fact, you could check out this whole playlist right here called California Love with all of those videos. Now, today I am going to talk to my guest, Craig Greiwe of Rise Together, which is a civic nonprofit organization whose mission and vision is to save Los Angeles. And if we save LA, then maybe we can even pass a lot of those policies on to the state of California. Craig's got a lot of amazing ideas on how to solve the city's problems with a common sense approach, imagine that, and getting rid of nonsensical policies and programs and other things like that. As Craig will tell you, the city of LA is just burning money, literally setting it on fire instead of fixing the problems in the state like homelessness, lack of a business-friendly climate, and don't even get me started on everything that's happened during the pandemic. And you know, guys, since I've been doing these videos about California, so many people have asked me, Danny, why do you hate California? Why do you hate Los Angeles? And if you hate it so much, why don't you leave? Well, guys, the answer is I don't hate LA. I don't hate California. I love this city. I grew up here. I came here when I was a kid. My parents came from Russia when I was about 5 years old to Los Angeles. We lived in Chicago for a couple years before that, and I've been here ever since, other than my stint at the University of Arizona, and then I've spent some time in other places. But make a long story short, I love this city. I love this state. What I don't love is the people who are running it, the so-called leaders, the politicians who have turned this city and this state into a nightmare. But hopefully, with what Craig's doing and what his organization Rise Together is doing, we can help turn that around and we can really save Los Angeles and save California. So let's go ahead and get to my chat with Craig. Enjoy.
Hey, what's happening, Craig? Thanks so much for joining me today. I am so excited to chat with you, and you are going to share with us what you do and how you're going to save Los Angeles.
Try to anyway. Thanks so much for having me.
So you guys, as I mentioned, you know, Craig Greiwe is the co-founder of Rise Together, which is an organization that he's going to talk about in just a second. But Craig, I'm going to hit you with the $1 million question right off the bat. You ready?
All right, let's try it.
LA has turned into a hole. Everyone's moving away. The taxes are high. The homeless are under every overpass. The government sucks. How are you going to fix it?
All right, $1 million question. I mean, the answer is feeling that way is understandable. Pick any problem in LA and it's broken, right? Pick any issue, it's broken. And that can be challenging for the public. We keep undermining faith in what the city can do. But the city's not the problem. These problems are solvable. It's the people leading the city who are the problem. So we save Los Angeles by getting people like you to invest their time, energy, and awareness into selecting city leaders that are actually going to operate from a place of common ground and move the city forward. Saving the city is really about understanding, getting people to understand that the city's not the problems, that the problems themselves are solvable, and that the people leading the city are the challenge. And getting people like you engaged, aware, and involved in the concept that we can select leaders who operate from a common ground and move the city forward in reality instead of with empty promises.
Yeah, and you know, Craig, so that leads me to this question, right, which is what I don't understand is how the city of LA and, you know, in greater respect, the state of California has picked the same people over and over again that keep promising all this stuff and then they don't deliver, and then the people here vote for the same folks. And it's, for me, it's not political, you know, like I don't care what party you're with. I just care whether you get results or not. And the people that have been leading the city and the state don't get the right results. And then we keep electing more of the same. I don't get it.
You're right. And the answer in that is 14 out of 15 city council members have been in elected office for over 20 years and on a public paycheck for over 30 years. And that's a problem, right? And I'm not saying that you can't be a public servant, but there's a point when being a public servant crosses into being a public parasite. And when you're playing musical chairs with elected office and trying to further your own ambition to go to Sacramento or DC, you're part of the problem. You know, I don't doubt that some of those people love LA and some of them have the best intentions, but in LA in particular, our systemic dysfunction is a product of how our city government is structured. And so even if you come in with the most noble intentions, you have to be a little bit of a bull in a china shop in order to reframe things and get things done. And the answer is a lot of people just aren't willing to do that and haven't been for the last 20 years. So now it's time for us to look in a new direction.
Now, Craig, you know, the bull in the china shop approach, we just had in the country for 4 years. And, you know, the people seem to go right back to kind of business as usual in Washington and bring back, you know, the same type of politicians that have been there for the last, 50 years. And so in LA, and I hate to keep playing devil's advocate, but I've been talking about this stuff on my channel, on my YouTube channel. And, the comments, I read all the comments about LA and California because I do care about this state and so many people are leaving. And so a lot of the people keep saying like, it's just past the point of no return because there's this swamp, like you said, the city council, the mayor, the governor, it's all the same. And their answer to everything is all the same, more taxes, more regulation. And so, how do you propose like long-term, actually workable solution where, we will be able to make those changes last?
100%. Well, that's because those changes are only going to last when the public is involved in them. The reason we have systemic dysfunction in this city is because the public's not involved. 85% of the population of Los Angeles didn't vote for Eric Garcetti as mayor. If you don't know your city councilman's name, then why should you expect that he cares about you? The answer is we've got to get the public invested. We've got to move the public, and that's what we're focused on Rise Together, is highlighting the things that matter to every single person, the things that matter to you, the things that matter to your neighbor, and the things that are different to the folks in Watts or downtown, but the things that matter to them, and getting them to choose just one issue to be aware of, engaged in, and involved in. If we aren't taking that accountability as the public, you can't blame politicians for taking advantage of us. It's, the last 4 years of the bull in the china shop was also paired with a lot of things that were incredibly undermining. Whether you agreed with policy or not, everyone agreed that the behavior was not helpful. If we want to affect real change, the bull in the china shop can't burn the china shop down, right? Like the whole point is you still need a china shop at the end of the day.
That's a good analogy. And I'll stop giving you a hard time now. And I will tell you that personally, I think what happened is that people just weren't paying attention to local politics. I mean, I can't tell you how many of my friends, whether they're, liberal or conservative, doesn't matter. I have friends on both sides of the aisle here, all said, I don't even know who our governor is, until this year, right? Because no one was paying attention to local politics until Newsom came in and shut everyone down. And then all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh, wait, who is this guy? So, I think
those people thought he was just a younger version of Jerry Brown.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And now I think, I think, total aside, but I covered his press conference yesterday and on YouTube Live. And my mom was watching. And so my mom called me later and she goes, he is such a handsome guy, but then he talks and he's an idiot. And I'm like, yeah.
It's a challenging time to be Gavin Newsom.
But anyway, the point I think is that, now I think people are paying attention, right? So I think that is a very good thing. And so I'd love to hear kind of, if we switch over to, what Rise Together is all about, what the mission is, the goals, and how you're going to make this happen.
100%. So, as I talked about, people are paying attention, but we've got to translate that into 2022, into people actually showing up. More people voted for mayor in 1949 than in the last 5 elections. I mean, that's insane. Our city council is the same size it was in 1925. That's insane. Those people are oligarchs over districts of 300,000 people. So we've got to take this awareness and we've got to keep it sustained. We've got to keep it going to affect a permanent sea change in the population of LA. Because of the shift in election dates to November of 2022, we will see 800,000 people ages 20 to 80 who have never voted for mayor in their lives show up. So what Rise Together is trying to do is to say, okay, we want more than that to show up, but we want all of those people to be informed, and we want them to be invested in one fundamental idea, which is that the problems of LA are solvable. We are not past a point of no return. And we can show examples of how that's working in the city, where it is working, usually with not government entities, but with nonprofits or private enterprise. But the problem isn't the city and the challenges it faces. The problem is the leadership. Our goal at Rise Together is to help people understand that and embrace that concept, to get them emotionally invested. Everyone in LA right now is focused on what city council member am I lobbying and for what policy and what intricate 30-page detailed policy paper. But the answer is that people don't have the time for that. They elect representatives to get into that. But what they do have the time for is when those representatives make poor decisions, as they have during the pandemic, that affect your day-to-day life. And so Rise Together is focused on saying, okay, we know you can't read a 30-page policy paper every single day. We don't want to either. But we need to focus on people who are coming from the middle, who are not part of this game of musical chairs of public office, and who are going to bring real practical solutions that build on that middle, so that we're not getting activists from the far right or the far left, but where the vast majority of people are in the middle of the city.
Yeah, Craig, I think that's an awesome approach. And, I do believe that it's the right time for lasting change here because I agree with you. I mean, obviously, the city, the state is not the problem. We live in the most beautiful place in the world, I think, but it's been ruined by these politicians.
As Los Angeles goes, so goes the state. I don't know why we've ceded power to the north for the last 50 years, but the answer is we can take it back.
Like Game of Thrones, baby.
Maybe minus the death, dismemberment, and dragons.
Yeah, well, for some of them, I don't know. No, just kidding.
When I moved here, and I've been here, I'm a lifer, right? So I've been here over 20 years. I'm not, I call myself nearly native in that vein, but the answer is when I moved here, there was a sense of optimism in this city and in this state. This is the place where we had spent our 60 years marketing ourselves, where this is the place where dreams are made, and not just entertainment dreams of being famous, but aerospace dreams, manufacturing dreams, innovation, and in the northern half of the state, Silicon Valley, we marketed those dreams. And those dreams are dying, and with it, people's hope and their belief. And this is no longer, California is going to lose congressional seats for the first time in its history, and that's insane. That's a red flag to everyone. And it's not just, oh, well, we've lost 1 or 2 congressional seats, but that's a problem. Other areas of the country are more appealing to populations, and that's because those populations are invested in those places. That home matters to them. And in California, and in particular in Los Angeles, your home matters to you, but you view it as defending against the state, defending against the city, as opposed to the city makes it possible. And that's the difference between California and Texas. And it's why Texas has got a lot of thriving going on based on its people. And that's what we're trying to change, right? We're trying to get people involved in that way here in LA.
And the solutions, it's interesting because I think about the solutions are not that hard. Like you need to make your area, like you said, people have to have pride in it. You got to make it business friendly. I mean, right now, every company that can is getting out of Dodge, right? And that's not a good thing. And we rank dead last in every survey of, what the most business friendly state is. And LA is no better. So it's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem. The answer is people just want the chance to thrive. Businessmen are not, there's this narrative on the far left that businessmen are trying to milk the public and you're evil capitalists, and that's not true. And just as the narrative of, Jews lighting the California forest on fire is also not true on the far right, right? We've got to get away from those narratives. We've got to highlight the middle. The answer is there are tens of thousands of jobs being held hostage in Los Angeles because of the way that our city is governed. We are lighting hundreds of millions of dollars on fire and doing nothing about homelessness, making zero progress. It's probably the number one issue right now in Southern California. And the same carries to schools, to pandemic policy. I mean, we made decisions based on panic and scare tactics rather than science. Pick any issue. We could talk about any issue, and there's a common ground component that works. It's our goal to bring those forward. We're not here to reinvent the wheel. I'm not here to rewrite a 20-page policy paper. There are a lot of people much smarter than me that I would employ to do that. But I am here to point out that that policy paper exists and that solution exists.
I don't know what you're talking about, Craig. As my buddy Brent Pella says, who does some comedy sketches online that are awesome. Newsome science, baby. That's what he's been using.
I mean, I have a lot of friends in epidemiology and a lot of friends who are in fighting on the front lines, and I have mad respect for everything that they're doing. And my running joke is that doctors are the most pessimistic people on the planet. They're the ones telling us, the whole world is going to fail because they see it every single day. That's their job, right? I want my doctor to be conservative in his projections, safe in his projections. But politicians and people who, and I'll say instead of politicians, people who govern, because politicians are not necessarily the best thing, need to govern from a place based in science, but also on what's the best public policy. And so they need to not be overly optimistic or overly pessimistic. And in this case, we didn't empower local authorities to do what they needed to do. And so areas of the state or areas of the city were shut down and treated the same as if they were hotspots when they weren't. So is it any wonder that people were frustrated when you have 1 in 3, 1 in 4 people in Boyle Heights coming down with COVID-19, but you've got 1 in 26 on the west side? Is it any wonder that the people on the west side are up in arms over it? We haven't been honest with the people, and that's the problem to start with.
Yeah, Craig, that makes perfect sense. You still have to use some common sense here.
100%. And as I said, we were never honest with that common sense. We said, if you stay home, it'll solve the problem. That was a load of total crap, and they knew it at the time, right? We were never going to bend the curve once. So when you come back to, and by the way, everyone did stay home. Cell phone records show that 80% of the population, anyone who could stay home, did, right? And then, so is it any wonder when you come back to the well a second time and a third time and a fourth time, and you're like, stay home, it'll solve the problem. And people are like, fool me once, but so of course we have to be reasonable in that respect. And then the opposite becomes true. People retaliate. People start doing things that are irresponsible. Throwing a 500-person underground party is not a solution in this environment. But keeping small businesses open on Main Street is. And that's, the outdoor dining in every statistical study showed that it was responsible for no more than 2% of infections. The contact tracing, when it was available, said that outdoor dining wasn't the problem. And yet we shut it down as a scare tactic, and that hurt a lot of people unnecessarily.
Oh my God. I mean, I did interviews with restaurant owners, and it's like, the first time, they all said like, okay, the first time we were cool, we did it, and then we invested all this money into infrastructure and outdoor, and then when you did it the second time, it just crushed everyone. And it's such a sad thing. But Craig, you mentioned some of the problems of LA. I do want to get into these, and I figured we'd kind of do these in maybe a little bit of a lightning round here at the end of our chat. And so I'm gonna give you the top issues. You've named them all already, but I would just love to hear your take, and then kind of Rise Together's position on what they're going to do, and then I do want to wrap it up at the end so people know what they can do to help and support the organization, and what the organization's planning on doing. So let's tackle some of the biggest issues. You are now Thanos. You can snap your fingers and you can solve them easily. So here we go. Let's go with the first one. Homelessness. What are we going to do about that?
Stop people from becoming homeless. We don't do that. We are so focused on getting people off the streets, we've forgotten the fact that it is 10 times cheaper to keep someone off the streets than it is to get them off the streets. We need a live hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for anyone in danger of losing their home to be connected with experienced nonprofit partners, because we don't need more government employees on this. We need nonprofit partners who know what they're doing, who can help counsel those people through a troubling time, who can access resources. Because I'll tell you, if a single mother of 2 working 2 jobs is $500 short on her rent because she had to choose between repairing her car to get to work and paying her rent, us making up that gap now and then working with her for the next 3 to 4 months to prevent that gap from occurring again is so much cheaper than paying $200,000 to try to get her off the street. We're talking about $1,000 now versus $200,000 later. Stop people from becoming homeless in the first place.
I think that's an awesome solution. Very common sense and very proactive, ahead of the game, which is great. Second one I have for you is schools. Let's put aside the fact right now that, they're closed for no reason. And let's just talk about the fact that, LA public school system has been very poor at getting people ready for the real world. What are we going to do about that?
Boy, I mean, schools are going to be unsolvable in their current format. You saw prior mayors try to bring LAUSD in under city control. The answer is that having two completely different entities at war with each other isn't in anyone's help. And having how many previous superintendents and allies are in prison for embezzlement and all this, the iPad debacle where we bought an iPad for every child in LAUSD. We need to focus on getting the basics right. When we passed a ballot measure to build new schools, we spent half of that building 6 beautifully architecturally significant schools at hundreds of millions of dollars a pop. Pretty? Yes. Useful? The best use of resources? Absolutely not. No. We need real accountability and common sense practical solutions, which means build more schools and pay teachers more. By the way, I don't disagree with the unions that we should pay teachers more. I disagree with the unions in that we should have far more accountability and flexibility in who those teachers are and supporting them. But I'm all for making sure that we have the cream of the crop in our schools so that no matter where you go, every single person in California, every single person in Los Angeles should be able to send their child to public school and have confidence that their child's going to come out of public school with the education they need. That's not the case. That's the fundamental basics, and that's where we need to go.
Yeah, Craig, 100% agree with you, by the way. I think teachers should definitely be getting paid more, but there's got to be the accountability on the other side of that. You can't just pay people more and then, have them do the same stuff they've been doing. So
I don't know anyone that's doing a good job where you couldn't go to them and say, I will pay you more, but if you do a bad job, I can fire you.
That's
and
right.
They would disagree with you, right? Like that person's generally doing a bad job if they disagree. Everybody else will take the money.
By the way, I should say that, when you look at the way the state, and you said it's a roadway or a road path to Sacramento and to DC, it seems like to me, these people come in, they screw up the job they're doing, and then as a reward, they get promoted. I mean, it's insanity.
There's a machine in Los Angeles that has previously controlled who won office, right? It was a combination of stakeholders, and you had, Eric Garcetti was elected in a city of 4 million people on 220,000 votes. That's baffling. It's mind-boggling. Now that machine is confronting a new election date where they won't be able to as effectively control the city. So hopefully we can break that cycle. But you're right. We need people who are not focused on being governor, who are not focused on becoming senator, Kevin De Leon, who are focused on becoming and being only the mayor of Los Angeles, which means that none of the likely candidates, and it's an open secret everywhere, are the right choice.
Right. No, I think that makes sense. So we're solving all the city's problems in 10 minutes. You see, it's not that hard, right? So we got schools, we got homelessness. One that I want to talk about that's kind of near and dear to me is how do you get businesses to want to be here? Right now, I will tell you the consensus I get in the business community, which I am a part of. I feel like small business community in LA. No one wants to be here between the taxes, the regulations, the overreach of everything, employment law. It's just a nightmare to do business here. So how do we solve that?
So there's a lot we can do on the local level. There's state laws that need to be changed, and certainly we can rail against them. And the leadership of Los Angeles, as the largest city in the state by far, should be driving state policy with the governor and not ceding control to San Francisco. But on the local level, we have a lot of nonsensical regulations, and in every industry, in every area. We need to foster innovation and we need to foster jobs development. So I'll say on the early level, a city innovation fund, take $100 million a year and invest in startups, give them a 10-year city tax holiday in exchange for agreeing to be located in the city for 20 years. It builds a tax base. It gives them what they need. It gives them a shot in the arm. And if 2 out of 100 startups succeed, you have a boatload of money for the city, for all kinds of social programs and lower taxes for everybody, right? So creating innovative programs like a city innovation fund are where the solutions are at, right? Becoming a home is focused on, I'm tired of people appointing czars and saying they're going to come in and change every policy. Do you know who needs a czar? Every small business needs a czar to cut through the red tape for them. So let's create a city small business advisor program. If we can't solve the morass overnight, we can at least give navigators to that morass to everyone in the city when they need it, so that they can tell you where to go, who to do things with, and how to get through it all, so that you can get back to the business of being in business.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. Like I said, it's common sense. So I don't know if the people will go for it. And then I got one more for you on my end, which is traffic and congestion. Has been a huge problem, obviously, in LA for a really long time that, doesn't seem like is on the top of anyone's list. Is that something that Rise Together is talking about as well?
100%. It goes part and parcel with affordability in the city. People are not the problem. Cars and the way our city is structured are. So I'll give you a brief story on this. I was in law school in property class, and there was an essay on how Los Angeles was the epitome, the height of smart urban design when it was created. And I spit out my water in class, having sat in traffic for hours. I was like, who designed what? And the answer is, the intention was to have multiple decentralized city centers where you lived outside your city center and then went in your city center to work. Traffic was caused when you lived in one city center and worked in another. And we created cross traffic between downtown and Century City and Universal. What we need to do is go back to the actual plan, which is to create investment centers and decentralized investment centers where people can live and work and play in the same place, where they want to be a part of the community that they find themselves in, where they don't have to drive for an hour to go get a job, or they don't have to drive for an hour because they can't afford to live where their job is. We need to create communities that people are able to invest in and willing to invest in to live locally. And that's the solution. We have mass transit, we have bus service, we are building, actually the one thing we're getting right is the subway to the sea. And the subway expansion and actually doing that effectively and quickly. But it's not just that. You can't just make it easier to get around. You need people to also want to stay where they are.
That's an interesting solution, actually, that I hadn't thought of. I think that's a really great one. And that actually, I'm going to give you one more, sorry, because you made me think of it with that answer, which is, what do we do about helping the underserved communities, the lower income communities that have been harder hit, I think, by, the COVID response? Because in my opinion, the COVID response that the state and the city has had has negatively impacted more so those communities than the affluent communities. Because the affluent communities, we got tutors, we have houses, the kids are fine. But in the underserved communities, they're the ones that are having a lot more issues with this. So coming out of the pandemic, how do we help those communities thrive?
The answer is there are a lot of nonsensical city policies that we can just do away with. And we need to be honest about those. We grade streets A, B, C, D, and F. And the official city policy is not to repair C, D, and F streets. That's stupid. If a street, we should be repairing our thoroughfares. The average citizen of Los Angeles incurs $800 extra of car repair costs a year, which means if you didn't get any, somebody else got $1,600. We've got to repair the streets in the places that matter. Those communities are often the marginalized communities. It's the same thing. Let's take speed humps. Great for communities. Once we reinstituted the speed hump program, there was instantly a 10-year waiting list. And you know what the city said? The city said, okay, we're going to install these as we come to them on this 10-year waiting list. So these communities are struggling. Well, communities that can afford their own went to the city and said, what if we paid to install our own? You already agreed that we get a speed hump. And instead of waiting, can we pay to install our own? And the city said no, because that will marginalize poor communities. So, which, we don't want to become a rich, poor neighborhood. But you know what the right answer was? The right answer wasn't no. The right answer was, sure, you can pay for your own speed hump, provided that you pay for one in a poor community too. You know the number of people that would sign up for that?
Sure.
And that By the way, and that's private subsidy, choice subsidy. It's not a tax, it's a choice by wealthy individuals to help out communities in need in order to get something they want to. We've got to get rid of, in order to help marginalized communities who need our help, we've got to get rid of this zero-sum equation where we think you've got to take from one group to give to another. The answer is we can all rise together. We can all rise in the tide. It's not poor versus rich. These people actually, like on both sides of the aisle, people actually believe in the same things. We've just got to reverse nonsensical city policies like not repairing broken streets.
Makes no sense at all. And Craig, it's interesting you say that, because I've always thought that, and I know earlier in our talk, I've talked a lot about, the taxes and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of my videos talk about that. I will tell you that not one of my buddies who owns a business or who's wealthy will say that they mind paying taxes if they get value in return, or if they see the value that's being done with the tax dollars. It's when these tax dollars are getting wasted, like you said, set on fire, that we have a problem. And we're like, why would I pay if you're just going to waste this money, right?
I pay my taxes every year. You pay your taxes every year. And the answer is we have to believe, as you said, that we're getting something out of it, right? I want to see a city that's growing. But if this city looks like it's turning into Detroit circa 2002, then yeah, I have a problem with how you're spending my money. But the solution isn't not paying your taxes. It's changing the people who spend your money.
Yep, that's right, 100%. Well, Craig, I think we could talk for hours about this, and this is so great to have you on to talk about how Rise Together is going to help save LA. Let's really quickly tell the audience here, first of all, how do they get in touch with the organization? And we will put all the links down in the description, of course, but how can they get in touch? And then if people want to support the cause and the movement here, what are the different options on what they can do?
Absolutely. So we are focused on launching our consumer campaign to reinvigorate hope and inspire Los Angeles to be invested in each other later this year. And unlike other nonprofits, we don't have any organizational costs. There's no executive director. There's no administration overhead. Everything's volunteer, and all the money is going to help the people and to convince the people to show up, to help educate them and inform them and be a part of their lives. So all of that, you can go online at risetogether.la and donate. You can ask, there's contact information there, and if you want to reach out and have a conversation, let's do it.
Well, Craig, this is awesome, and we will have all that contact info. Just check down below in the description there, you guys, or wherever you're watching or listening to this. And Craig, it's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your commitment to save LA. I really do hope it happens. It's a sad state of affairs to see so many people leaving the city, leaving the state, when really, this should be the top destination in the state. LA should be, and then California should be the top destination in the country. And I hope that it will be once again.
It will be. And you know what? After this pandemic is over and after we save LA, you can take me to dinner on the bet that we can save LA. It's not beyond repair, and we can get all of those people who left to come back.
I love that. I think that's a great idea. Well, thanks again, Craig, for your time. I appreciate it.
Hey, you guys, I really hope you enjoyed that chat with Craig Greiwe of Rise Together. Hope you join me in agreeing that he's got some amazing ideas and some common sense solutions to the problems plaguing Los Angeles and, on a bigger scale, California. These are real issues, and we need people in office that are going to solve these problems and not do stupid stuff like Eric Garcetti does and like Gavin Newsom does. I really hope that we can turn this city around. I see so many people leaving, as I mentioned, and it really is sad because I grew up here. I love this city. I love this state, and I don't want to see this happening. So if you enjoyed that chat, remember, get down in that description, click the links, and you can support Rise Together and Craig's mission. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'll see you on the next video.